Love, exciting and new.
Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever.
It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships of Bermudan and British Registry.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest today is the novelist, journalist, critic, Diana Evans. Diana is the award-winning author of 4 novels. She's been shortlisted for countless awards, including the Women's Prize, and won the South Bank Sky Arts Award for Literature for Ordinary People. Before all that, she was a dancer with the Brighton-based African and Caribbean troupe, Mashango. Then she was the arts and music editor of Pride magazine. And some of her best work is now published as I Want to Talk to You, a collection of essays in which she examines the personal and the political. She interviews icons and looks at the realities of aging and thwarted or otherwise expectation.
We're formed by the messages and the atmosphere around us, and I think we carry them into adulthood and we sort of unravel them throughout our lives. I think in a way childhood we never really leave our childhoods. We're formed by them, and then they unravel within our adult selves.
Like many of you listening, Diana is also a woman caught in the middle-aged sandwich of children and parents. She joined me from her home in South London to talk aging, experience and expectation. We covered compulsive worrying, the hazards of being a doer, the pain of turning 50 without her twin, how caring for a parent can be bigger than childbirth, and why we no longer need an aesthetic license in middle age. Oh gosh, well, where to start? What was it like going through your entire career to pull I Want to Talk to You together? Must have been.
It was quite a project, actually. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. I thought it was going to be quite quick, but I had to go through lots of journalism that I'd done quite a long time ago, somehow connect that with the newest stuff that I've done and try and make it into a coherent whole. Try and make everything feel that it was all connected. And I also had to kind of accept my failures, I think, as an early writer, because when I read my older stuff now, I can really see the weaknesses in it. And I had to give myself a bit of grace. And because we did want to show the progression of a writer from early career to a more experienced novelist. And so I did have to allow myself to show those moments of weakness that I'm not that proud of now, or that I might not write now, but it's all part of the journey. We wanted to show the journey.
Yeah, I think it is interesting when experienced writers go back to early work, whether it's fiction or journalism, and that every single one will say that the urge to just have a quick fiddle, and just sort that thing out is absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. I did have some tweaks, but not too much that it would change the character of the writing. And there were some pieces that were just they weren't pieces that I would want to be reread now, or that I would want to memorialize in a collection or anything like that. And it was also to do with the people I was writing about. Some of the interviews I included because of the impact that person had on me at the time, which was quite profound, such as the Cassandra Wilson piece. She was such an incredible woman. She has this amazing aura. She was almost hypnotic. And I wanted to really capture that moment and return to that moment. Yeah, so it wasn't just about the writing and the journey. It was also about trying to remember these people that I've met along the way and capture the impact that they had on me.
Yeah, because the earliest pieces must have been from, what, your mid-20s?
Yeah, mid to late 20s, yeah.
And what was it like looking back on that Diana?
It was fun, actually, because when you're looking back on your life, you can see things in the past that now feel much clearer and more formed. So you can see kind of earlier traits of yourself that didn't make sense at the time, or that you were unsure about, and that they've sort of matured into sort of clearer parts of your character, and that's quite. I think that's quite satisfying, that is, because I used to worry a lot when I was younger. Youth does come with a lot of worry, and now I don't worry so much, or I worry about things that matter, whereas before I used to worry about everything.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was nice going back to a more innocent version of myself, I think, and getting back into that mindset where everything was newer. Because everything was newer, there was much more anxiety. But that's okay, looking back on it, you're looking back from a place of safety, I think. But, age comes with anxiety as well, of course. But
Yeah,
it's just a different kind of anxiety.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I know exactly what you mean, but then, your brilliant essay at the end, the sandwich, is all about the anxieties or at least the start point for that essay is the anxieties and the responsibilities of being at the point in your life, roughly where you are now, around about 50 with the... are your children early teens and late teens?
Yeah, I have a 14-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I know. Tell me about it. Raising a teenager, a teenage boy, is really not a walk in the park.
And so is your daughter the eldest?
Yes, she's the eldest. She's away at university now, so she's much easier. She was a much easier child, but my teenage boy is he's much more kind of sociable, and he wants to do everything and be in all the social medias, the Snapchats, the TikToks, the Instas, and trying to police that and monitor that in the context of what we're seeing at the moment with children, endangered really by social media. It's a really difficult, sort of scary time to be a parent, I think.
To go back to a minute to your writing career, how did you, because you started off as a dancer, didn't you? So how did you make the shift? Because dancing is a career that requires a lot of commitment. And I mean, I would say this, but I think writing is too. So they're kind of two very demanding career paths or loves, or how did they exist in tandem, and how did you make the shift from the one to the other?
Yeah, I mean, I found that I couldn't do both because I fell into dancing when I was at university, and I was studying media studies, and I kind of fell into this African and Caribbean dance troupe that this South African guy was setting up. He just approached me on campus one day and asked if I wanted to audition. So I did. And it was a small company, and we used to travel around the southeast of England and perform in theatres and pubs and things like that. And it was just a hobby, really. But then it became more and more central, and I found myself doing it more as a job. And then once I graduated, I found that I had to kind of make a decision between writing and dancing, because they weren't really compatible, because they both are very all-consuming. You can't do both at the same time. So I had this really kind of difficult decision to make, because I loved dancing. I loved that whole lifestyle of moving all day long, and being surrounded by music. And I loved the theatrical space and the looseness and the freedom of it. But I felt that I had more to do in writing in the long term. So I decided that I was going to write. So that's when I went and got a job as a journalist, because I realised that the only way to, at that point, to earn a living through writing was to become a journalist. So, but I did carry on dancing, but it just went, it definitely was put to the side, and I carried on doing classes for a while. I don't really do many classes anymore, but I do miss it quite a lot, because they're completely different pastimes. Writing's so sedentary and solitary, whereas dancing is the complete opposite of those things.
Yeah, it's the absolute opposite, isn't it? And you would almost, if you were going to generalize, almost not expect a person who loved one to love the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's strange, because I feel like I'm very much, I still see myself as a dancer. I gravitate towards music very naturally. And when I'm listening to music, I'm dancing to it mentally. I make movements in my head, and I feel that I still have to dance. I still need to do it. But it's exactly the same with writing. I feel this natural tendency towards it, like it's a part of my character, something that I have to do. Yeah, it is interesting that you can be both of those things at the same time. But I guess we are opposites often.
What were you like as a little girl? Because you grew up, didn't you, in a house of women? Effectively, 5 sisters.
5 sisters, yeah. My mum, my dad, and 5 sisters. My poor dad. So it was 7 women, and we were very close. It was a very close-knit family. Me and my sisters are still very close. There were 6 of us. I was the second youngest, along with my twin, and then there were 3 older than me. We had such a great time, and my mum was very kind of solitary within our kind of family network. She was quite a solitary, aloof figure, and my father was he was quite a difficult father, and so we formed this kind of bubble, me and my sisters, and we had an amazing time within the bubble. We were very close. We shared a lot of secrets. We danced a lot. There was lots of music, and we created this space of happiness and safety within a household, which in some ways felt slightly threatening. And within that, I was quite a quiet child. I liked reading, and I was also really hardworking. And I think I really carried that into adult life. I think it was something to do with my mum. I think I was quite affected by how lonely my mum seemed, and how disempowered she seemed. She didn't work. She was a housewife. She didn't seem to have her own kind of identity. She wasn't financially independent. So it's always been really important to me that I had my own independence as I went into adulthood. So I've always been very hardworking, and I think that's the reason behind it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how those things that we observe as quite small children, how the extent to which they shape decisions that we make right into adulthood.
Yeah, exactly. We do. Well, I think when we're children, we gather our identities almost through osmosis. We're formed by the messages and the atmosphere around us, and I think we carry them into adulthood, and we sort of unravel them throughout our lives. I think in a way, childhood we never really leave our childhoods. We're formed by them, and then they unravel within our adult selves. So I think we never leave those houses behind that we grow up in, those spaces. I don't think we ever quite leave them behind. We carry them with us, and they then colour the spaces that we find ourselves in. And that's one of the things I'm always thinking about in my writing: the impact of childhood on our adult lives.
You write, I was thinking about that when you were talking, that you write in your novels so much about, I mean, it's not the themes, but, family and home, and the kind of conflicting, what are the words I'm looking for? I don't know, belonging, but also suffocation might be too strong. But restriction, I'm not sure, that kind of sense of it being the kind of warmth of home, but also the limitations that home puts on you. That seems to be a thread that runs through your work.
Yeah, that is. I think there is within families and households, I think there is a conflict there between the sort of the comfort of the self and the independence of the self, and the connection with other people, and how that compromises the self. That is something that I'm quite fascinated by. And I think within marriages, it's easy to restricted. I mean, I do find that marital space quite a restrictive space. It is by nature, I think. And so that's something that that I'm always grappling with in my writing, and the compromises of marriage, but also the comfort marriage or partnership or companionship, or however you want to phrase it. But there is some restriction imposed on the self by companionship, by consistent companionship. And that's something that I'm interested in, yeah.
You talk about the kind of flattening nature of motherhood. So you said you felt oppressed by motherhood and the way that motherhood can swallow a woman whole.
Yeah.
Which I like, obviously is a big thing, but I think most people listening will be like nodding along going, yep, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that can happen. I mean, I love being a mum. I do. And I think it's really enriched my life completely. But, you know, it is definitely a compromise. And I think the struggle of it is trying to maintain your own sort of self-direction and self-connection in the context of motherhood. I think for a writer, maybe motherhood poses particular threats because my own writing, I think, thrives on solitude. I love being alone. And when you're, you know, part of a family, you're not really, you have to fight for solitude often. It's posing a threat to your writing, because I think writing is inspired by voices that come from within. And you need the silence of solitude to hear those voices. Well, that's what it's like for me anyway. So there's this kind of worry that I'm not hearing the voices that I should be hearing if I'm always surrounded by family. Or so it's important for me to take solitude, to take that space when I need it, like on a regular basis. I think also motherhood comes with those. I think it's easy for women to fall into traditional roles, roles of motherhood. I think especially given the way, you know, the politics around childcare in this country, the fact that we have the most expensive childcare in the Western world, I think that there's a tendency for families to fall within that traditional pattern of the male being the breadwinner or the main breadwinner, and the woman staying at home. I think that can still happen.
A lot, I think.
Yeah, and if you do find yourself in that situation, it can feel quite compromising, and it can cause, resentments within relationships. And that's really what I was writing about in Ordinary People, the kind of difficulties establishing a parenting model that feels right for the particular couple, and that feels modern, how difficult it can be to restrain from those kind of traditional roles, or to not fall into them, and the guilt that can come if you do fall into them, you know. Yeah. And the impact that can have on relationships and your own sense of yourself as a mother, and by default your connection with your children, you know.
How did you find that when I was reading the essay, The Sandwich, about finding retirement home for your mother near your house? And I wondered if you have a tendency to, if you're the doer in the relationships.
Yeah, I'm definitely the doer. I'm definitely a doer. I think I'd be a really good project manager. I did actually manage my mum's move across the river, because I like to get things done. And I think actually all of my sisters, we're quite bossy women, and we're all kind of control freaks in a way. But I am very, very organized to a fault, you know. I think that is my superpower, efficiency. Yeah, and it's easy to feel sometimes that you know, I'm doing everything here, but that's actually my fault because I just take everything on because I'm worried that it's not going to be done properly or fast enough. I like things to be done quickly and properly and thoroughly.
And your way.
Yeah. Well, it's just in the way that is the quickest and most efficient way. It doesn't necessarily have to be my way. but ask my partner, he might not say that. That's how I see it.
It's interesting because I was having a conversation with the American poet Maggie Smith about her divorce and her divorce memoir, and she was saying something similar, which is kind of about being the family project manager, and really when she wasn't there, being only missed for those skills, which is not what you're saying at all. But then she was talking about in her subsequent relationship that she kind of had to recognize that she partially did that, that very much what you were saying, that, well, so she's not living with her partner her new partner, because she's like, she doesn't want to revert into the kind of the mother, the organizer, the thing. And I think I don't know whether it's because we see it when we're growing up or I mean, it's a societal expectation, but I do think that a lot of us revert to a certain extent, we're doing it to ourselves, like the calls coming from inside the house, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it is. It definitely is. I think maybe, I don't know if this is generically a male-female thing, but I do think that I notice things more in the context of my relationship with my partner. I notice things more and they bother me. And they don't really bother him, so he doesn't see the need to do something about it. So, and I think that's probably the case with lots of relationships. There's the person who's much more relaxed about everything and easygoing, and doesn't really feel the need to fix things that aren't broken, so to speak. And that quality could be seen as laziness by the other person, who is much more the doer and wants everything to be fixed and working and perfect. I think it's two very different personalities that can collide. But there's actually nice things in that quality of being easygoing and laid back and things not bothering you, because it means you are much more relaxed, and there's a lightness that is really nice to be around. Relationships are difficult, and I can understand why. I mean, I have a fantasy of driving off somewhere when my kids are old enough and my work is done, and just living on my own somewhere as a hermit or something, because that space of being in a relationship and living with someone, I think it can be really compromising. It can be quite distorting, where you might see things in another person that are not necessarily bad or negative. It's just that they sort of jar with your own characteristics.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. Is it just me, or does it seem like everyone is either starting a side hustle or becoming their own boss? And you know what they're hearing a lot? It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your own business. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses, big and small, worldwide. Whether you're selling jeans or juice, books or blusher, Shopify simplifies selling online and in person. Covers all your sales channels, from a shop front-ready POS system to its all-in-one e-commerce platform. It even helps you sell across social media like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And it's full of industry-leading tools that give you complete control without having to learn new skills like design or coding. And thanks to award-winning help and with an extensive business course library, Shopify is ready to support your success every step of the way. What's lovely about Shopify is that no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify will be there to empower you with the confidence and control to take your business to the next level. It's time to get serious about selling and get Shopify today. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/shift, all lowercase. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.co.uk/shift. You've mentioned solitude a few times, and I'm that really interested me because you're a twin and you're one of 6, and you grew up in a crazy, like you said earlier, a crazy girl bubble.
Yeah, I did. I like that phrase, girl bubble.
I mean, I quite like it too. Yeah, have it. It's my gift to you. Sorry, you've thrown me off now.
Writing that down.
Yeah, so girl bubble. So you grew up in this crazy girl bubble, and then in your mid-20s, your twin, your other half, if you like, died. Did that play a part in your relationship to solitude or need for it, do you think?
I think it did. Yeah, definitely. Because growing up as a twin, you feel like you're never alone, that you're always with that person because you're kind of a part of each other. And it's very easy to be with that person. You know everything about each other. So being with them is almost like being alone. And when you're not with them, you are with them because you're merged in some way. I think after she passed, the need to be alone was probably more pronounced because she wasn't there. And so there's a sense that I need the solitude in order to kind of hear her presence in my life, I guess, because I do believe that people, they when you lose someone, I don't think they don't disappear from your life. They do physically, but our connections are so much deeper than the physical. So they sort of remain with you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. During solitude, I feel like it's easier to connect to that continuing presence, And I think I'm not afraid of solitude because of having lost a twin. The solitude makes you stronger.
There's a really brilliant essay about being a twin in the book. And there was one point when you make the point that you weren't even alone in the womb. And I just thought, oh my God, that is so fascinating. And it had just never occurred to me.
I haven't thought about it in that way for quite a long time, that you've never really been alone. As a twin, you've never been alone. And so there is this unique, very complex relationship to solitude. You don't know how to be alone, and you have to kind of learn solitude, just living inside it. Yeah, I don't think solitude for me is quite the same as it is for someone who's not a lone twin. And maybe that's why I'm so comfortable with it. I'm not really alone.
Really fascinating. I mean, do you mind me asking what it's been like getting older, crossing milestones like motherhood? I mean, you have the essay in the book about what to tell the children about the auntie that they'll never know, like, big birthdays, like turning 50. What has that been like?
It's my life, and it's difficult, but I feel like it's my journey, and the absence of her is something that I've carried with me, and I've learned to accept. And those particular milestones, I kind of take them as I come. I think that the most difficult one was I think turning 50 without my twin, and just thinking about where we might be at that point in our relationship to one another, and the things we might have experienced together. It felt like quite a loss, like a repeated loss at that point, because it had been almost 25 years. She didn't know my kids. I would love her to meet my kids, and they would have loved her. So there was a lot of, there is a lot of sadness, but I do see it as, we carry scars through our life. I think it's a the whole point of living is trying to manifest who we are in the world, keep a hold of ourselves and staying connected with ourselves. And I think that's what carries us through. And the things that happen to you, the good and the bad, they're all a part of that growing, continuing connection that you have with yourself. And I think if you can just hold on to yourself through those difficult moments, then the strength continues to grow to kind of see things in a way that is not like self-sabotaging. I don't feel like I've been destroyed by by the loss of my twin. That there are ways that there are things that it's given me as well as things that it's taken away from me.
Throw you right back to working at Pride, where you were arts and music editor. You've said about that working in the Black British press in the 90s. And the 90s was a weird old time, wasn't it? I mean, that you were writing against invisibility, white centrism, and mainstream negation. And it struck me that you've been doing that ever since, really.
Yeah, I have, actually. That's been a bit of a driving force through all my writing. I think when I was in my early 20s, I was really waking up to the fact that race gets in the way of things. And I hadn't really thought of it when I was a kid. I didn't really think about race very much. It was only when I was in my early 20s and was at university and I was reading people like Toni Morrison and Alice Walker and it kind of dawned on me, race holds us back and that there's this huge imbalance in the world and that it's very present in the media. And so I think I've always been working to try to write invisibilities into the mainstream and to write from a point of kind of centralizing Black perspectives and making them visible and drawing them from the margins to the center in a way that is not kind of stereotypical or reductive. I think it's a continuing requirement. There's a social default to kind of fall back into that imbalance, and I think I'm always working against that. So I think that's why my books they are about giving voice to Black British people and to creating a landscape where we're kind of visible and normalized. That's really important to me. Yeah.
Has ordinary people been optioned?
Yes, it has. It was optioned, and then it kind of fell apart because I won't go into it.
Yeah, life's too short.
Yeah. So it has been optioned again. There's a script writer working on it. It's been optioned for film, and I'd love to see those characters on screen. So keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking about that and A House for Alice. Really, it strikes me as a bit mad that they aren't particularly ordinary people. It isn't on screen already because, we're all slightly beginning to congratulate ourselves that the representation of middle-aged and slightly older women is getting better. Mm-hmm. Those women are they're all Nicole Kidman, but no, I don't have anything against Nicole Kidman. I think she's great, but they're all white and they're all kind of a type, if you know what I mean. It's kind of feels to me like it's one experience.
Yeah, I really do think we need to broaden out that depiction of aging women, menopausal women, and well, not just women. I think just broadening out the depiction of ordinary people on screen, I think is so important because I think when we look at shows that are about ordinary domestic lives, such as Motherland, or what's that one about the family and the two kids?
They've got 3 kids.
Outnumbered, yeah. I think we need more of those kinds of dramas that feature Black characters in the main roles. Where they're not kind of just the best friend or the partner, when it's actually from inside those households. I think there's still a real need for that, for the depiction of everyday Black lives on screen. And so I really hope it happens. Not necessarily for ordinary people, but for that kind of project. I think there's a real I think there's an audience for it as well, and I feel like Black viewers are being they're being shortchanged. They're not being fed. They're not being given the work that they should be being given, and the images, because we do want to see ourselves reflected. I think that's quite important. Hopefully we'll get there one day. I think there is a lot of work being done behind the scenes.
I hope so, because like you say, at the moment, it's very much like, oh, give her a Black friend.
Yeah.
And that'll sort it. That'll improve the statistics. And it's not coming from inside the experience.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
I mean, I've mentioned the essay, The Sandwich, which is actually the final essay in the book, a few times. But I've mentioned it because it kind of is what it says on the tin. It's, about being the kind of squashed filling in the children-parent equation. And I was really interested in your experience of moving your mum into a flat nearer you. Yeah. You described it as being bigger than childbirth.
Yeah, actually.
Tell me about that.
It was, it was huge, I think, because my mum had lived in the flat that she had lived in before moving for about 20 years. And before that, she'd lived in my, childhood home. And so she'd lived it was to do with crossing the river as well in London.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
On that north side of the river for, all of the time that she's lived in the UK, because she's originally from Nigeria. Yeah, I think when you live alone for a long time, the things that you accumulate around you, for my mum, it just went back decades. So there was so much stuff to go through. I think it's difficult to move when you're that age as well. She was in her mid-80s when she moved. Yeah, I think it's really important to do it sooner rather than later, because I think if we were trying to move her now, that would have been a real, almost impossible. But I think we just moved her just in time. But it was literally like sort of picking her up and moving her. I think it was quite traumatic, but gradually, it's over time she's settled, and I think she's actually more comfortable now than where she was, because there were stairs going up, and she's not very good on stairs anymore, and she was quite isolated from us. We were all quite far away from her. So, but now I can drive over and I can be there in 5 minutes, and it's easy for me to check on her. But yeah, it was a humongous, all-consuming task that just completely took over my life for a while. But I think sometimes you have to stop, and it did feel like it was really important. I was worried that she was going to fall down the stairs or get broken into, that something terrible was going to happen. So I literally had to down tools and get her moved. So that was my project that I was managing at the time. And my writing kind of fell to the wayside for a few months because of it. It just needed to be done.
In that essay, you talk about being nearly burnt out by the midlife sandwich, that big project of moving your mum. Were you also going through perimenopause at that time?
Do you mean physical symptoms?
Or mental, or however you experienced it?
Probably, yeah. I mean, with the menopause, I've been quite lucky. I haven't had a lot of the really awful symptoms that lots of women do have. I've always had this kind of disconnected relationship to emotional aspects of, physiological aspects of being a woman, like PMT and PMS, and I can always ride it all. I I can just ride it because I'm very good at controlling my emotions. And I will just, if there's something that needs to be done, I will just kind of put my emotions to the side. So I probably was going to, I did probably have perimenopausal symptoms, but I didn't really I didn't really acknowledge them, I guess. I just got on with it.
Fair enough. Did you learn that when you should never tell me things like about how that you put your emotions to the side? Did you learn that as a little girl?
Definitely. I think I learnt that growing up. Because I think I had quite a troubled childhood, and I think when you're growing up in a household where there is stress or tension around you, I think you have to sort of switch yourself off or switch a part of yourself off. That's what I did anyway. Because when you go to school, you're in a classroom full of people all day, and you have to kind of get on with your schoolwork. You have to learn. You have to have these social relationships with your friends, and you have to just function. So you switch a part of yourself off. And so I did learn that when I was a kid. And it has made me, I think it has made me quite resilient. But it also means that sometimes it's difficult to relax because you if you relax, then something terrible might happen, or some kind of essential order is going to be messed up. So yeah, I think I did learn that in childhood, definitely.
Has that mellowed a bit as you've got older?
Has it mellowed? No, probably not, actually. I think it's just so much a part of me that I don't really even think about. And I think it's useful because it helps me to withstand things. It helps me cope with stress. There's things that I've used over the years that have helped me kind of manage the negative aspects of it, like yoga, for example, has really helped me relax and cope with stress, like internal stress and external stress. So it means that in situations of stress, or like anything to do with work, or when things aren't working properly, I can sort of just maintain this calm composure. And I do believe that there is a part of us that is calm all the time. I see it as a place that's just behind our ribs, in our torso, and I'm always at peace in that specific place, and I can always connect with that place through my breathing. It's a yogic thing. And I think that's really helped me through. And I probably did bring that from childhood as well, in connection with that habit of turning off my emotions. I think it then developed into this sense of inner calm, this consistent, eternal inner calm that's always there. I do believe we all have that.
I love the sound of that. Do you visualize it, or is it, like you say, is it somewhere that you access through breathing and physical things?
I sometimes visualize it. Yeah, I think of it as like a little tent on a beach, but it's inside the body. Yeah, I think you can visualize it in whatever way that comes up for you. But that's the image that I tend to think of is a tent on a beach.
That's interesting. That's like envisaging your kind of safe place or your happy place in certain sorts of therapy. I just want to ask you one more question about aging before we get on to the questions that I always ask at the end. Ro, I mean, you've written some wonderful things in the essay I keep talking about. You say that menopause is a ticket to freedom, but you also said our body is our own again, like it was in the beginning, which I absolutely loved. Can you expand on that a bit? Because I just think it will make everybody feel really good.
Yeah, well, I think there's so much pressure on women to subscribe to this idea of beauty and physical perfection, the dominance of the aesthetic. We're looked at all our lives. We're looked at. We're stared at. The media enforces that as well. The way women are portrayed physically, it's all around us in the culture. And there's a connection to youth in that aesthetic as well. I think as you age, you kind of given the ticket to just move away from that and to take that sense of judgment, that aesthetic judgment, to lift that away from ourselves. And it's almost like taking off this heavy burden. It's like a relief. It was like that for me as well. Like not feeling like you need to be aesthetically, that you owe men something, or you owe the world some kind of aesthetic license or something. We don't, and I think that has been a really kind of beautiful thing about aging. That beauty becomes, beauty becomes less an area of judgment. It's about what's inside us, and what is all around us. Nature. Yeah, I definitely feel that something has lifted from that kind of aesthetic judgment. Yeah, it's like a freedom, and we should celebrate that. And I think that's not to say that Asian women are not beautiful, because I think we are, but probably more so because that sense of voyeurism has turned away.
In A House for Alice, you wrote, a lot from inside a much older woman. Do you think you will continue to do that? I mean, Alice was in her 70s, but in general, do you think you will write older characters?
Yeah, I will. I'm trying to write a novel at the moment which features women who are in their 50s, because I think there are so many novels that are about young women, and I think that really that's a popular form for the novel, the lives of young women. But we don't really see older women so much in fiction, and especially women of colour.
No, totally.
Let's see if that novel works. I hope it does, because I never know when I'm writing a novel whether it's going to work until I'm near the end. so it might be a couple of years before I know if it's going to work.
Have you put a whole novel in the bin?
No, I haven't. There is a novel that I've given up on temporarily, but I will go back to it. It's just that at the time, sometimes it's that you're not in the right place to complete that novel, and you have to go back to it. But so I think it's a huge investment, a novel, and I think if you've made a certain level of investment, it's difficult to completely abandon it. So I've never completely abandoned something. And usually I find a way to make it work. It's just that sometimes it takes a long time. Like Ordinary People took 7 years, and it wasn't until like the 5th year or something that I knew it was going to work. But if I believed in it, I knew it was going to work one day. I just didn't know when. It could have taken like another 5 years, and I would have had to just keep going, because once you've invested 5 years in something, you have to just keep going. You can't give up.
Well, I'm here for the next one. Definitely, I'll pre-order. Definitely.
Thank you.
Right, questions that I always ask at the end. You're nearly free. What's your emotional age?
15. I still feel very young inside. And when I remember when I was 15 that I made a decision that I was gonna be the person I wanted to be at 15, and that I realized that you can have a control over the person that you are. And I don't think I've ever emotionally moved on from that from that realization. I think I still live in that moment of being realizing that you can be that you can control and define who you are.
Give us a book recommendation.
I think anything by Jean Rhys, maybe after leaving Mr. Mackenzie. I also wanted to recommend Laurie Moore, anything by Laurie Moore.
Oh, I love both of those. What advice would you give younger women?
I would say to trust your instinct, but also know when your instinct is wrong, and also to not to worry about the things that there's no point worrying about.
How do you do that, though?
Yeah, it's hard. That's actually my New Year's resolution this year.
How are you doing so far? We're not very far in.
Yeah, I'm doing okay, actually. Like being a parent now, there's so much to worry about. But so I'm trying to just worry about the things that are worth worrying about.
Who's an older woman who's inspired you?
Tracy Chapman. I love Tracy Chapman. I love that she just leads her life very quietly, and she's very kind of self-possessed, gentle, and she just puts her beautiful, beautiful art into the world with such grace and compassion. Yeah, I just adore her.
It was so wonderful to see last year her, fast car back. being recognised
doesn't
by a
that make
whole
you
new
cry when you
generation.
watch that?
Yeah, so much.
Yes, so she's my yoga buddy. That's why I always do my yoga to Tracy Chapman.
That's a good tip. You've answered this already, but I'll ask you anyway. What's your superpower?
Oh, what did I say? Efficiency. Yeah, super efficient. I'd be a really good secretary or PA. That's my like other job. If I had like a normal job, I would be a PA. Something like that.
Last one. How many fucks do you give?
About 2.5, maybe.
That's specific. I love the specific ones. What are the 2.5 for?
Left in my bag. Yeah, two that didn't seem enough. 3 felt too much, so 2.5.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.